some of the behaviors.
I imagine you've kind of seen it all. So I'm wondering what actually is a profound experience for you when you see it.
It's been a while, but sometimes I get complaints and I get accused of saying things that shock me. A few weeks ago, someone complained that I had said rape was okay. And I have no idea how this person came up with that particular thing. A few years ago, there was a woman, she was about 50 or so. She was in an abusive relationship with an alcoholic. And I think she had this feeling like I resembled her boyfriend. And she made a list of maybe 20 pages that I said this and I said that. And eventually it was found that she was just a little nuts. But I think it goes to a bigger problem, which is cultural. You really don't know anymore what you're walking into. You know, one of the nice things about, I think, having a family, I mean, being around your parents and having siblings is there's always wrestling going on. You know, people are always doing things that are going to irritate you. And the truth is, you have to compromise. You have to kind of overlook some of their errors and kind of sit at the dinner table and be relatively civil, respectful to yourself and others. And hello. And when you get trained like that, you know, day after day after day for over, 10, 15, 20 years, then you walk into any environment, whether it's your job or a classroom or a relationship that's not familial, then you will know how to kind of overcome some of the difficulties in life. And I think now what you have is, because people are so isolated, anything that goes in wrong in their life, they want to blame someone, and so there isn't much you can do about that. So you're not really looking at a particular person sitting on the back and feeling a certain way. They have a history, and there isn't much you can do with a history, and they're actually quite toxic for the classroom. A classroom such as this, if I was an instructor who would come to class and just write down a good amount of information on the board, and then the class would be harmless. You don't like the information? Well, it wasn't really for me. I was just telling you what Joe Schmo said. But if, on the other hand, I put those ideas in a way that you may assume that it's from me and it's by me and through me, then you're going to have difficulties with me, And so that's something that you need to watch out for. But I think when you're young, you have a capacity for a good amount of BS that comes your way. You have time, you have energy, you have fantasies, and all of those help in you having the ability to forgive and, turn a blind eye and move on. When you get a little older, and it doesn't mean you have to be 60, you can have repeated the same experience over and over and over again, and you're only 25, where you come to realize, I'm 25, I've been with similar kind of personalities for the past 10 years, and they all in the end turn out to be completely dysfunctional. I just don't want to do it anymore. And it's better to be 25 and exhausted than 60 and exhausted, because when you're 25 and exhausted, you have a chance you still have plenty of time to kind of sit back, observe, take notes, and maybe change the course of your life a little bit. If you're 60, for example, and all of a sudden you come to the conclusion that things about your life are really negative, it's going to take you a long time to overcome the bitterness because you've lost so much, and you have nothing going for you. You don't have youth on your side anymore. You don't have energy on your side anymore. So, either way, it's tough. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah.
What's going on? What are you doing here? Good job.
So you don't get pleasantly surprised anymore, just negatively.
Yeah, I think when I walk in the classroom the first day, I just look around and I know who I'm not going to like. There may be a pleasant surprise where I grow to like them because I realize I was wrong, but most often, if someone just doesn't smell good, that's just the end of it. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it then for the day, huh? Any, your hand is up?
No.
God forbid. That would be a pleasant surprise right there. Yeah, Michael.
I know this was like a while ago.
Sure.
One time you mentioned that like when I was young, you said that it reminds me of how so.
The Buddhists have this idea that when people yawn, there's a diaphragm inside their head somewhere, that it opens this portal and they get closer to enlightenment. You know how those people are. It may be true, I don't really know. I was just being sarcastic. I look at you, you're nowhere close to enlightenment. I'm just joking. Sometimes people yawn because things are boring and they're tired, and that's okay. But instead of looking at them and saying, am I boring you? You say, oh, by the way, you yawn because you're very close to being enlightened. You just play with people a little bit. Something like that. But it does make you feel good. You yawn thinking that you're really just exhausted, and all of a sudden you realize, no, it's not about that at all. Something about you is coming up saying, I want enlightenment. Hello. So, yeah. That's it? Anyone else with anything interesting? Yes, Wolf?
Talked about the value of, because you've mentioned music a few times, you talked about the value of like music, people's lives,
Art. Yeah?
I was trying to ask if I could say something.
Please. Are you an artist?
I want to be, but it's from a story that I heard about way back then.
Do you mind?
So back when the slave happened, a lot of Africans, they used their drums to basically, in a sense, of form of communication to express themselves. So when white people would come, take them to the land, they would take their drums. It was the only way of communication from them. And what they did instead was, instead of using said drums, they instead used their body language and created this music called hip-hop, which is a form of drumming with your body. And it was basically a way to show, even though you took away our music, we can still make the thing we love and what we cherish.
That's actually quite nice. The it's such a difficult thing to talk about. So, I suppose before we can talk about art, we need to talk about life a little bit. And we need to talk about the forces that exist in life. Imagine you have a difficult day at work, and you go home, and your companion looks at you and says, "What's wrong?" Now, if you're not very creative with language, which takes a good amount of practicing, you're just going to say, "Oh, nothing." You're going to go to your room, close the door, maybe sleep a little bit, and then come out and you'll be in a better mood, hopefully. If, on the other hand, you've been in this scenario plenty of times and you've grown tired of your own silence, which is like poison that lives inside you, and then you say, maybe I should just think about it, maybe I should write about it, and maybe I should talk to my friend about it. And then after many, many years of doing this, you become an artist of sorts. You're able to express your emotions in a way that can inspire other people. And the only reason, take good care. And the only reason you're able to do this was because forces were imposed upon you. You found yourself paralyzed. Eventually, after many practices, you became really proficient. So music is an expression. Art is an expression. And the question is, well, why do you need to express anything? Well, sometimes you express because you're confused. Imagine that you were my instructor. I email you saying I want to come by. You say, okay. And I come to your office, I sit, but I don't really know what I want to talk about. All I know is that I want to be there, but I'm also embarrassed being there because I don't know what questions to ask. And I don't know what I'm ready to hear. And I don't know what I'm ready to apply. All I know is that I want to be there. And I want to be there because of the confusion. And the confusion creates a good amount of pressure within. And somehow I need to just vent it. And I think all sorts of expressions that we do, whether it's writing, whether it's reading, whether it's talking, whether it's playing the drums, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's either from internal confusion or life has imposed upon you certain experiences and you just need to get them out. That's really the main function of art. And then, of course, when you become really, really good at your art, at your craft, then you begin to kind of look out there and see who has ears or eyes to see and hear my art so I can create, inspire, give birth to the proper emotions, the emotions that used to live in me and now I express them out. Maybe I can inspire the same emotions inside another human being. Sigmund Freud had a lot of interesting things to say about art. And I think for the most part it was because he was so interested in why human beings are the way they are. What makes us tick, what makes us laugh, what makes us cry, what makes us go crazy once in a while. And again, his position about human beings are not really taken very seriously simply because he worked most of his life in mental institutes. We have talked about Freud in this class a little bit, no? Do you have any other questions? Yeah. Forgive me, Wolf. I'll be right back.
It's more of like a question for you. I mean, didn't you say you used to play music?
I did, yeah.
You used to play music before you write recognition because there was a difference in like censorship and stuff like that. And has that influenced you anyway?
No. Any other questions?
What tea do you drink?
Sadaf. It's Persian tea. Sadaf means oyster. Where you get the pearls.
Is it rum tea? It comes in the
It's just black tea,
black tea.
but they have some cardamom in it, so we call it hell, like Hell. So Persians are exposed to a good amount of hell before they actually end up in it. Forgive me for today's class, it's a little all over the place. Anyone else? Assalamu alaikum, Noor. Kendra?
Maybe you can talk about why we quote other people or other texts or sites.
I'm sorry?
Why we quote other people or other texts or the site.
So you ask about art, you ask about music. And what do? I talk about Sigmund Freud. Hello. May I be honest for a moment? Do you know why for the past many, many weeks of this class, in fact, for the past 30 years, when I walk into classrooms, I talk about other people's ideas? I don't have any ideas of my own. I don't have the courage to create ideas of my own. I'm not inspired enough to observe my own life and create a life that's worth sharing. I bury my head in books. I copy and paste the ideas into my brain. I'm gifted with some animation. I am creative a little bit, and that's not my own doing. Psychologically, I was just wired this way. And I think it's frightening to look at the whole of my life and come to realize that I haven't really done much that's worth talking about. And since I buried my head in books for the past 50 years, when people ask me questions, why not tell them about what Freud said, what Marx said? They've been far more eloquent. They've actually been good students of life. And so I steal their ideas and I make them into my own. And then I come to class and students raise their hand and they ask me questions as if I know a thing or two about a thing or two. And it makes me feel good. Gives students this illusion that their instructor knows a few things. And because the students raise their hand, look at me and ask me and then listen to me, it also creates for me, psychologically speaking, an illusion that I know a few things as well. So both of us will walk away from the class relatively happy that we have stolen other people's ideas We've turned them into our own creation, and we can go to coffee shops or dates and talk about them as if there is something profound and meaningful about us. In some ways, it's a desperate attempt that our lives don't amount to much, but if you're able to connect yourself, I mean, because these are celebrities of humanity. I can't reach Brad Pitt, but if I did, I would probably have him stand next to me and have one of or two of you or all of you take a picture. And then I would post that picture online. And then all of a sudden, I would become famous because Brad Pitt is sitting next to me. And since I teach philosophy, I stand next to the celebrities of the philosophical traditions past 5,000 years. I stand next to Gilgamesh, next to the Buddha, next to Freud, next to Socrates, Plato. Because I'm not really Socrates. And I can't be Socrates. I don't have eudaimonia. I don't have the demon of happiness inside me. I'm not inspired by the muses. I don't have a teacher called Diotima. I'm nobody. All I know is that for some strange reason I enjoy these ideas. I gravitate towards them. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm just confused. I'm looking for someone to give me a map or a GPS to how I should be. And I find my GPS in Freud, for example. So I connect to him because he makes my life to some extent meaningful and relevant. It doesn't mean anything. I am a counterfeit in many ways. But because, and to some extent, you must also admit that I'm not completely pathetic. I come to realize my own blind spots, and I know that I am incompetent in many ways, and I look towards history to see if anyone's out there who is more competent than I am, who is more creative than I am, insightful than I am, has locked themselves in a room and just reflected on things for days on end. And then I use their ideas because I can't do it on my own. I need help. You know, they have traveled this path before. All I can do is just follow. I can't create. You know, winter time, I used to go, when I was single, to Yosemite, and I used to, and winter time is a nice time because the snow blankets everything. And there is only one camping ground open, and that's Pine Valley, about 15 minutes to Curry Village. And as you're driving towards Curry Village, you look to your right as you're leaving the campsite, and there is this huge, spacious ground. And you say, I'm going to park my car and get out and just walk. And something happens to you, as it happens to all of us. You say, I'm going to create my own footsteps. Now, you don't know what you're asking, you don't know what you want to do, but it's a great dream to have. And you look around, and there are other people who have gone before you. Their footsteps have turned into ice. But you say, no, I want to create my own. And so you take a couple of steps into the snow, and you go in at first, knee deep, then waist deep, then chest deep. And then every time you try to pull yourself out and move another step forward, you're sweating, you're a little frustrated, irritated. And then you say, no, I'm here and I want to go way over there. I can't do this. And the elevation is high, you're breathing relatively deeply now or heavily now, you're sweating, you're getting hot, you have a lot of clothes on. And with some Herculean effort, you remove yourself, you go back to the point A, and you say, I'm going to walk in other people's footsteps. Okay. And when you walk into the footsteps created before you, you realize you're not going to sink. They're hardened now. And so you get to your destination relatively quickly. I can't close my eyes. And other people, remember Freud and Socrates, they're like people, it's like Home Depot, they give you tools. Now the question is, can you use those tools to gain autonomy, independence, or are you always going to be dependent on them? I think for many of us, we use them as crutches when we get to argue into conversation with people. We use their ideas to make the conversation go for a long time. We make ourselves feel good. Some of us, we take those ideas and we say, okay, this is what Freud said. Let me take what Freud said to my interior and simply see if what he says fits. And then you have to kind of figure out your own dilemma as you're going through this journey. And then what happens, if you ever reach the destination, is that you have taken the ingredients given to you by Freud, you have seasoned them with your own life experiences. Now what you have is 80% your own observation, founded on 20% of Freud's, you know. But it takes a long time and you have to be profoundly inspired and creative. You know, I didn't create the alphabets. All I know is that some poor instructor spent a good amount of time and energy forcing me to memorize ABCDs. Then I go to grade 1. Another poor instructor forced me to put the letters together to create a word. I get to grade 2. Now I put words together to make a sentence, and then make a paragraph. Then write an essay I don't really understand, but I write nevertheless. Then, you know, I read Harry Potter, and I get lost in the imagination in a world created by another human being. And that's how life is. You know, we get lost in other people's ideas because we can't create our own. It's too difficult. And it's what we call scholarship. You know, God forbid if you take a psychology or philosophy class and an instructor asks you, what is justice? God forbid if you write down your own experiences. That's not a good scholarship. What you need to do is write down what Aristotle says and compare that to Plato and compare that to St. Augustine and his divine justice. Now that is scholarship. Stealing other people's ideas, cutting and pasting them in a way that makes sense, and it's academic. And then you'll get a PhD and now you're called educated. So in some ways, you know, we use bumper stickers because they're great tools. In some ways, we use bumper stickers because we hide behind them. In some ways, we use bumper stickers because our lives are quite pathetic and empty and hollow, and other people make our life more meaningful. And the truth is, there is nothing wrong with it. I mean, given the pathetic situation that human beings are in, from the moment we are born to the time we die, we kind of just swim in confusion, try to figure things out the best we can. I mean, you know, it's difficult to be 28 or 29 or 30 to figure out where exactly I'm going. Then have a companion who's, you know, 24 or 25. They're confused, you're confused, you're trying to make this work, and God knows if it's going to work or not. Taking classes, having a job, you know, trying to figure out what happens when there is a tiff or a disagreement somewhere, how you're going to resolve it, if it's going to continue, if it's going to work, if it's not going to work. It's too much to handle. Figure out life, figure out yourself, figure out your parents, figure out your companion, and then figure out old age and figure out how to die. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, and you can't do it on your own. So you need help. And for us, our help is other people. Don't try to do this on your own. Look, we have, history is about the moment we figured out how to create alphabets, and that took place in Egypt. The moment we figured out how to have cuneiforms, you know, wet clay, and then you write the alphabets on it, you let them sit in the sun. And what happens is people are imposed by events in life. Some events are ridiculous, you forget. Some events are painful, and you write them down. Sometimes you write them down because you vent. Sometimes you write them down, I want this to be written down as a piece of advice for my kids. Okay. You have 5,000 years of written world cultural stories. People who have gone through the stuff that we go through every single day. You have to be a complete idiot to dismiss 5,000 years of recorded history, all the knowledge, experience, wisdom, insight that other people have experienced, and say, you know what, I want to do this on my own. But you're an idiot. Well, you think you're the only one who's ever experienced depression, loneliness, the death of a parent, the loss of a companion, not liking a class, being offended, insulted, walk towards old age with dignity, you know. We have all these stories in the background. Use them. But use them. Not just like spit them out as if you know anything about them. You know. So when you get like 18, 19, 20-year-olds who say, I want to be autonomous, creative. Really? No. You're just new to life. Like anyone else, you know, plagiarize, mimic. Play the same goddamn key over and over and over again until after 10 years of practice, you become a good pianist. Now you can improvise. Well, just because you read a couple of books, you think you can know how to think? All right, so you have some feelings. Good for you. You know. You know, there are some thinkers who live all over the world. They have a hut, maybe they have a one-bedroom, maybe they have a mansion, I don't know. They never go out. They have their food delivered to them. They don't have a companion. They don't write. They simply walk, they wash dishes, they vacuum. They have no need to vent. They're very, very self-sufficient. You know, if there are moments of confusion, they sit and pray. They talk to God, whoever this God may be. You know, they know how to communicate. They know how to be self-sufficient. That's their music. They only play to themselves. They don't need an audience, not even one. The rest of us, we don't have that privilege. We are profoundly pathetic. So whether you speak or write or draw or whatever it is that you do and you consider that to be creative, you do so because life has imposed upon you some things, either from inside or outside. You need to share them with other people. We have art because we need to vent. We need to share our experiences. We need other people to think and feel the way we do. We don't want to be alone. There was what's his name? C.S. Lewis. You know, C.S. Lewis had this student who would never pay attention in his classes. And one day, and he assumed that because the student always falls asleep in his class, he's not interested. And to his surprise, one day he walks to the library to check out a book and he runs into the student. And he has like 50 books in his hand, he's about to check them out. And these books are about philosophy, literature. And one day, I don't know if it was in the classroom, he asks him, or in the hall somewhere, where C.S. Lewis looks at the student and says, why do you always fall asleep in my class? And he looks at C.S. Lewis and says, you're not a good teacher. You don't express ideas well. He says, but you like literature. This is what I'm teaching. He said, you know, my father, this is what the student tells the teacher, C.S. Lewis, that my father used to teach English. And he would always tell me that we read to know that we're not alone.